Hi, my name is Alan. In this important lesson, I will show you what playing the piano involves, or more specifically, what each of your two hands are supposed to do on the piano. Now, learning a song by hearing is all about being able to distinguish the melody or the main tune of the song from the chords and the bass notes of the song, and then writing the notes that you hear, writing it down on a piece of paper or a notebook, and then playing them back together on the piano as faithfully as possible according to the song. Okay, the melody is the part that the singer sings or the instrumentalist plays. The chords and bass notes represent the accompaniment to the melody. This is the part that the orchestra or a band normally plays, uh, or even a chorus of backing singers, and they are backing what you are playing here as a singer. Okay, so just to discuss first about the right hand. The right hand fingers typically play, once again, the melody or the main tune of the song, the part where you would hum or sing to, or just sing the song. So here are some ways you would play the melody on the right hand. First, simplest way is just playing single notes. Okay, so just single notes like that, just as a singer would sing in single notes, or a violinist or solo guitarist or even a clarinet player, just single notes here. But then another way of playing the right hand is to play double notes. For example, if the main singer has an accompanying singer, and they might just do a duet where one singer sings this note and another one sings a different note, so it goes like that. Okay, so that's just another way of playing it in double notes, but you don't normally do that throughout the song. It's only certain phrases of the song. Okay, and then yet another way of playing with your right hand is playing in full chords. So what you actually do is you are playing the sound, the melody, but in a way that where you're holding at least three or four chords, or even three or four notes, or sometimes even just two notes. And these notes all pretty well correspond to what you're holding here as chords on your left hand. So it goes. So sometimes you're holding four, sometimes you're holding three, depending on where you're at. But it makes the sound richer by playing chords. Okay. Then yet another way, fourth way of playing is just a matter of fingering. If you want to make special effects like okay, or it's like a country kind of sound. So it's just a touch thing, but it's yet another way that your right fingers can express themselves in terms of melody. So instead of playing, I would do something like. Okay, so that's just a bit of special effects there. And yet another way is on your right hand you would place arpeggios, okay, like okay, so just every now and then at appropriate parts you would just do a roll of the fingers. So that's just another functionality of playing the right hand here in accompaniment with your melody. And yet another way, speaking of accompaniment, is something like that. Okay, so you just add some extra notes there. Um, so you could add extra notes whether here or here while you're playing here. So that's just another way of playing right hand melody. Okay, so in summary, basically what I want to say is when playing with the right hand, it's not just about playing single notes that would usually sound quite boring after a while. Instead, you should explore other ways of making it sound more interesting, either by playing two notes or playing three full chords. Or just using some certain parts, special effects, of course depending on the song. Okay, and then the other way is well, adding arpeggios. Okay, now we'll talk about the left hand here. The left hand plays the accompaniment parts of the song and include the bass and the chords. They provide substance or background to what you're playing on your right hand. Without it, your piano melody would just sound pretty hollow, just playing notes on the right hand. So you need to learn how to play the left hand too. Left hand is usually more difficult to play because your bass has to move around, and you also have to think in terms of changing chords and so on. Okay, but let's take a look at various ways the left hand is supposed to be played. If you are playing a melody, it usually have chords associated with it. So when you're playing chords typically involve holding down 3 notes or 4 notes. Okay, so like that is a C chord, but C chord can also be played like that, or fully, right? Or there are chords like that. These are 4 chord notes, right? Or so it can be played 3 or 4 chords. But if you're just holding down chords while you're playing, it's just very boring playing, holding down chords. So we got to move around a little bit. But to understand moving around, you first need to understand that when you're playing a chord, like you're playing C, the root position of a C chord is C. But you don't want to just, and this represents the bass, okay? The left finger, the smallest finger here, always plays the bass notes. So when someone hears you play a chord, the dominant sound you'll hear is coming from the very left here, the bass. Okay, and every chord usually has 2 basses. If you have time to go to the second bass, the second bass is always made up of the 5th note from the root here. So if you are playing C, the 5th note is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G. So you have 2 basses, G, C bass and G bass for every chord you play. So if you're playing F, what is the second bass? It would be 5 notes away from your root, which is F here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So C is the second bass. So by knowing that, we go on to the next way of playing, which is sort of percussive playing, because you then start to make things like this is waltz. And then this is swing. And then there are other ways like playing tango. And then bossa nova. So there's always a second bass accompanying, and you don't have to be too worried about how we're doing this, because in another lesson I'm going to talk a bit about playing chords with a drum machine and how you're supposed to move around. Okay, so we'll cover that in another lesson, but just let you know that your left hand does not just hold down the chord, but should be moving around, like at least to a second bass if you can. second bass to go to if you got enough time. And then there are more interesting ways of playing this. And yet another way of playing the left hand is just playing the bass alone, like okay, so you can actually play just bass alone, and then by knowing how to walk around on the bass and then playing chords, then you do things like move around, while playing chords and all. So you mix and match. Sometimes you're playing, moving around the bass. Sometimes you're holding the chord. So that makes the song more interesting. Of course, when we talk about playing things like that, you don't just keep staying there. When your knowledge begins to develop, then you'll be moving around a bit here and then doing a bit this, doing a bit that. It becomes more interesting. Okay, so finally, there's another way of what your left hand does is playing part of an arpeggio, like it's also involved in playing arpeggios. That's what the left hand also does. Okay, so in summary, I hope this lesson gives you a good idea of what your right and your left hand does. Left hand is for bass and chord accompaniment, and your right hand is playing the melody. And when you play a song, they all come together. Okay, and there are different ways of playing. So I hope that lesson was useful. Thanks for watching.